Hi, Brenton Ford here from Effortless Swimming. Welcome to Feedback Friday number 14, where we bring you an analysis of someone's stroke to help you better understand what we like to look for and how we go about changing someone's stroke. So in this video, we've got a triathlete swimming in an endless pool, and an endless pool will often make any flaws or areas in your stroke stand out more than what they would when swimming normally. So while it does change your stroke a little bit, we can certainly see a couple of things that we want to work on. So from this first view from the side here, often we like to look at body position to begin with. And you can see once we get to this next view coming up now, body position in the water, not too bad, almost horizontal in the water. You can see that the hips and the feet may be occasionally sitting a little bit low, but generally that overall body position, quite good. What we would want to try and do over time would be to probably change the actual posture and position of the lower half of the body a bit, really just to straighten the legs out. So if we play this here, we'll put this in slow motion. You can see here how there's quite a bit of bend through the hips, and the legs don't quite straighten enough as they kick. So the swimmer here is probably going to find that they will get a little bit more extra drag and resistance on top of their quads, so on the top of their legs, because they're not straightening their legs quite enough in the up kick. So that can sometimes just come from working on activating, switching that core on a little bit, and really engaging the glutes and the hammies to bring the leg up quite a bit straighter out the back there. Now, sometimes I find with people who haven't come from a swimming background, they will often have difficulty engaging their glutes and hamstrings in the right way in order to straighten out their posture and their position through this part of the body. And they will sometimes find it hard to get the top part of the leg actually coming up higher than the hip itself. So if there's this constant downwards angle through the hip, then it's going to be constant drag there. So one really good drill that you can do to help improve that and change that can just be, instead of putting a pull board between your legs, put a kickboard between your legs. And because the kickboard is very narrow and thin, and it can be quite slippery too, it really encourages you and forces you to engage your glutes enough, keep the knees a bit closer together to really switch this on to be able to maintain this nice straight and flat line through the body. So that's often an easy way to develop that kind of awareness and posture in the water. And yeah, it's similar to what you'll probably find that your body does quite a bit with a wetsuit, because a wetsuit will compact everything, it will suck everything in and keep that straight line a whole lot better than what you would otherwise. So that's one thing I'd look for in the beginning here. Now, the other thing that I'd probably look at, and it does depend whether this happens in open water or in the pool, but in terms of head position, you can see there where the swimmer is looking out in front. Now, again, this is different for everyone. We never say this is the one spot to look. It's different for everyone, but usually the range is somewhere between here, anywhere from straight down to around 45 degrees in front. Now, being a triathlete, he's probably going to want to look a little bit further forward than what a pool swimmer would do. What he might experiment with is just looking maybe a little bit further down. Doesn't need to be much, but maybe a little bit further down. The main thing I'd suggest or recommend is really extend, lengthen the back of your neck. We want to try and keep this line through the lower back, the upper spine, up to the neck, relatively straight. Not completely straight, but relatively straight. That allows you to keep a good connection through the core and the rest of the body. And I think here you can see this angle through the body, where the chest and the head is probably just sitting a little bit high. It'll create a little bit of extra drag, and that might be just slowing him down slightly. And again, it's one of those things I recommend experiment with. It's not to say he can't look out there, but give it a try. See if it helps looking a little bit further down, just for better connection through the rest of the body. Then we like to look at, all right, what are the hands doing in the stroke here? Now, if we look here on the entry, you can see where the fingertips are entering quite close to the head. So on this left side, he might be entering a little bit too close to the head, really to get the most out of the recovery when the arm comes over the top. What I like to do for most triathletes is really try and get the hand entry a little bit further out in front of the head, so that then the last bit of reach and extension happens in the water, not most of the reach and extension. So if we then just keep moving through, you'll see what often happens here when you come in close to the head. The hand will usually go deep, and then he doesn't come up with the fingers, which is good. Most people will tend to come in and then sort of come up through there. But you can see he doesn't let the fingertips rise too much. It actually gets to quite a good position out in front. So here, right, that slight downwards angle, that's exactly what we want. But I would recommend seeing how you go, entering a bit further out in front, mostly because if we get to a little bit further down in the video, actually, we'll bring it back. All right, so back to here. What we want to try and do with this arm is you've got this momentum and energy traveling forwards because your arm weighs a couple of kilos along with the hand, the forearm. We want to be able to translate that speed, that hand speed, into momentum and energy forwards and in the water. If it comes in too close to the head, sometimes it will just mean that you will lose some of that energy that's traveling forwards. It will kind of dissipate a little bit early on. So let's see where it comes in here. Not too bad. I mean, it's still probably closer than what I'd like. I'd still go for a little bit further out with that entry point. If we look at the right hand coming over on this side, see where he's going there? Still going fingers first, elbows up. So that's great. That's exactly where we want to be. You can just see how much further out in front of the head is. So I'd go for that on the right side. Let's go back to the underwater. So here under the water, we're looking at the start of the catch. So the catch is, if you don't know what the catch is, it's from here, when you're out in front with the hand at full, or the arm at full extension, and then once it gets down to about there, really, that's all the catch is. You can see he's doing quite a good job of the catch. He's tipping the fingertips down, right? Not a bad position by any means. The arm probably is a little bit straight, and if we were looking at the front view, that hand's probably out slightly too wide. See where he is out here. The hand's wider than the elbow in that part of the stroke, and one thing that we teach a lot at the clinics and the camps that we run and within the membership is we want to try and keep that hand at least below the line of the elbow. So at least below it instead of out wide. Otherwise, keep it on the inside there. And the reason for that is when you do that, it allows you to really engage your lats a whole lot better than if that hand's out wider. So that's one thing we'd probably look to do using a couple of drills that we teach in the membership. But once he's here, the forearm, the hand, he's still pressing back quite well against the water. He's just going to be missing out on a little bit of power from that hand going slightly too wide out here. So I'd look to bring that on the inside slightly more. Then looking at the right hand, you can see nice entry, fingers first, reaching forwards. Gets to a pretty good position out in front. So again, we're looking for that slight downwards angle, really through the arm. All right, good setup. You will notice here when he does take a breath to that left-hand side, how this right hand goes down a little bit deep there. And one thing I want you to look at is his shoulder. So this is one thing I have a big focus on with most swimmers is if the shoulder comes away too far from the side of the face or it drops down too low in the water, it can mean that the arm is going to go too deep. It can be very difficult to engage the lats, really use that to pull through. And it can be hard to keep a good position out in front with that kind of over the barrel shape that we look for an ideal catch position. And it really just stems from if this shoulder isn't keeping up high enough. So it's what we kind of want to see, and you'll see it in videos of professional triathletes and elite swimmers, is a slight abduction with the shoulder. So with abduction, it just means it's sort of keeping the shoulder up here a little bit more than letting it drop down there, because that drop down is causing this to go slightly too deep. And here, if we measure the angle of the arm is at 128 degrees. All right, and when we look at that view, we want that arm angle to be around 100 to 120 degrees, and the hand's probably across the center here. So ideally, the shoulders won't be rotated quite that far. We want the shoulders to be rotated slightly less, the shoulder up a little bit higher, closer to the side of his face, and the arm, if we can get this a little bit wider in this sort of sideways triangle position, you can see that arm angle would be around 108 degrees, which is in that power zone. He's going to be getting a lot more from that right arm, because the left arm, as we saw, looking pretty good. Hand just needs to come inside, but that right arm probably just losing a bit of power and also a bit of balance, which you'll notice there. Then that right side again, you can see where that hand, it's crossed the center. Shoulders have rotated quite a distance here. I don't think this angle is going to quite translate, but I think the shoulders have rotated to maybe 90 degrees, maybe a little bit less. But the most you want to rotate to is about 45 degrees if we're looking from the front. Because if you go to 90 degrees, then often the hips will rotate too far, the legs will splay, like you can see here. And most importantly, very difficult to get much power from the arm when that shoulder's down so deep. So it probably just wants to rotate a little bit less to get that breath. And that will really just start by keeping the shoulder up near the side of the face a little bit more, so you can stay on top of it instead of letting that happen there. So yeah, there's some drills and some drill sequences that we like to go through within the membership and at the camps, but it's really step by step. You don't want to try and fix everything at once. We want to go through this in a step by step manner. And the first thing I'd really look at here is the kick. I'd look to work on that first. Now let's have a look at the other view. So this is the second shot here, where we're a little bit more in the front. This probably gives us a better view of what's happening under the water. And again, we can see those same things happening, particularly with the kick and the posture out the back. And here, I think the speed with the pull is quite a bit slower too. So that certainly changes the stroke. And sometimes going really slow will make any flaws stand out even more, similar to going really fast. But again, we'll look at those. So see there, hand entry, quite close to the head. See how the hand's turned around, that thumb's going first? I don't mind the hand to be turned around a little bit. Okay, see there? I don't mind the hand to be turned at a bit of an angle, but you can see that's just it's probably going to be crossing the center of the body. You can see how it comes across there, and then it sweeps back out. Again, it does get to a nice position there, but there's going to be a little bit of extra drag and resistance created, and a bit of wasted time when that hand comes in and then has to come back out. On the right side, again, nice entry there, and you can see this forearm and hand pressing down. So you can see that general direction in which that's going early on. So working on those couple of changes and those focus points that we just spoke about are going to help adjust those couple of things there. All right, but I think I'd really just look to start with the kick. So put a kickboard between the legs, keep the legs straighter. Don't bend so much at the hip and at the knees, keep the legs straighter. It'll feel like they're almost completely straight. Obviously, you're going to have some natural bend through the legs. That's what we want. But if we can keep that core and the lower half of the body a bit more taut, a bit more firm, it's going to be like he can cut through the water a lot easier, as opposed to being sort of, with that sort of wavy position through the water and lack of control. So it's very hard to generate that much power if this isn't switched on as much as it could be. So I think he's got some really good fundamentals happening with the stroke. And let's just put this in full speed. But I think that's the sort of 2 or 3 things I'd look to work on for the next couple of weeks and months. And when you do those changes, they will often feel weird and different, and it can feel slower and sometimes harder. That's what I always tell people when we go to clinics and we run camps and people join the membership where we do online coaching with this sort of thing. It's a process, it takes time, and you have to be prepared to sometimes take a step back to go 2 steps forward. So you can certainly swim faster straight away with a few changes. More times than not, it is going to take you a few weeks and months to change the motor patterning, change the way things feel, and to have it actually feel good and to feel normal. So you've got to be prepared to be in it long term. And that's why in the membership, it's a 12-month thing. I don't have a 1-month option. It's a 12-month thing, because in order to really see changes for the long term, I want to work with people who are committed to working on this stuff long term, and they're not going to try it for a week and then stop and then say, oh, it didn't work. No, it's about you've got to do it over and over again. And the way I normally get people to do it is in their warm-up. I give them 2 or 3 different drills to focus on as part of their warm-up, and then go about your normal swim session and practice those things as you go. But you've got to go through those drills and those stroke changes every session, make a habit of it, be consistent with it, and then you'll find that your swimming will start to change. Okay, because it's like going to the gym once a month. While it might feel good for 2 or 3 days, it's not going to have any long-term effects. It's got to be done consistently. So this is Feedback Friday number 14. I hope you enjoyed it and took something away from it. We'll have more of these coming in the next couple of weeks. I'll talk to you soon.